In December 2022, the Kosovo Specialist Chambers delivered its first war crimes trial judgment and convicted Salih Mustafa, the former commander of a Kosovo Liberation Army unit known as BIA, for the war crimes of arbitrary detention, torture, and murder. The BIA unit operated a detention compound in the village of Zlash, near the capital Pristina, during 1999, when the Yugoslav authorities tried to drive the Kosovo Albanian population out of Kosovo, and the Kosovo Liberation Army resisted. The victims in this case were Kosovo Albanians who were not taking part in hostilities and who were targeted by BIA members on accusations of being thieves, spies, collaborators, or supporters of political parties perceived as opposing the Kosovo Liberation Army. The victims were held in barns intended for livestock, with animal waste on the ground, no beds, inadequate food and water, limited toilet access, and no medical care. The evidence showed that Salih Mustafa and his BIA subordinates routinely assaulted the detainees physically and psychologically. Detainees were beaten, often by several BIA members at the same time. They were hit with baseball bats, iron and rubber batons. They were burnt, electrocuted, stabbed, kicked, punched, and slapped. The mistreatment left them severely injured, bruised, covered in blood, unable to stand or speak, and sometimes unconscious. One witness testified that he wished he had been killed. The physical and psychological abuse, coupled with the inhumane and degrading conditions of detention, left the victims with lifelong physical and psychological injuries. Around 19th of April 1999, as a Serbian offensive was approaching the area, most detainees were released. However, a severely mistreated detainee who was in near-death condition was kept in detention. The victim was later found dead. The trial panel found that the detainee's death resulted from the severe torture inflicted by BIA members, the deliberate denial of medical treatment, and gunshot wounds. While it could not be established who specifically shot the victim, the panel found that Salih Mustafa intentionally and effectively deprived him of any chance of survival, first through his mistreatment by BIA members, and then by denying him medical treatment, and by Salih Mustafa's decisions neither to release nor evacuate him. The trial panel held Salih Mustafa responsible after concluding that the death of the victim could be attributed to acts and omissions of Salih Mustafa in his capacity as BIA commander. Key evidence supporting the conviction for murder included testimony describing the detainees' severe mistreatments, injuries, and incapacity. Evidence showing that Salih Mustafa participated in the torture of detainees and controlled decisions about their release. Proof that the murdered detainee was denied medical care. An identification of the victim's body through documents, photographs, and testimony. The panel further found that it had been established that Salih Mustafa was the overall commander of the BIA unit and of the Zlash detention compound, that he had authority to issue orders and discipline subordinates, and that he was directly involved in interrogations and mistreatment. In light of this, the trial panel found Salih Mustafa criminally responsible as a direct perpetrator of torture in relation to two specific detainees, and found him criminally responsible through his significant contribution to a joint criminal enterprise for the war crimes of arbitrary detention, torture, and murder. The trial panel heard 28 witnesses during the trial, including 13 witnesses called by the prosecution and 15 witnesses called by the defense. The panel assessed the credibility and reliability of all witnesses giving weight where testimonies were consistent across witnesses, where accounts contained detailed descriptions of detention and torture, and where testimonies were corroborated by other pieces of evidence. The panel also concluded to give less weight to some witness testimonies where a witness or witnesses had limited direct knowledge of events, where witnesses had close personal relationships with Salih Mustafa, and where testimonies were not reliably corroborated by other pieces of evidence. When pronouncing the sentence, the trial panel emphasized the cruelty of the mistreatments and the vulnerability of the victims. Following the appeals and the Supreme Court proceedings, Salih Mustafa's sentence was reduced from the initial 26 years to 15 years of imprisonment. The trial panel ordered Salih Mustafa to pay a total of 207,000 euros in reparations to the 8 participating victims for the harm caused by the crimes for which he was convicted.